Welcome back to the rookie playthroughs. Uh, this evening we're gonna go kick things off with Beeker Mountain, which I'm sincerely hoping is a Muppets reference, because that would be awesome. Let's see if this works. Normal disclaimers. Everything I say during this stream is just my opinion, which is, just that, my opinion. Doesn't mean anything's right or wrong. I'm just going to give you kind of stream of consciousness, just my thoughts and, having seen it for the first time. Did I type it wrong? Am I not paying enough attention? Beaker. Alright, I believe V2 is the correct one. Cannot get this to come up on my phone. There we go. Perfect. I'm gonna go get my phone charger. Also, second disclaimer, if apologies if my cat interrupts the stream at any point. You'll just have to forgive me. He's still getting used to living here, and I am still getting used to him living here, so we're still figuring things out on my end. Hello, Deacon. How's it going? No, I don't have work tomorrow, so I get to do a couple of these. What was that noise? All right, let's see here. It looks like this one was done in Rustic, I believe. So I think this is the first Rustic one I've played for this contest. Alright. Oh, I can get rid of that mouse cursor. So, there's something, not something the designer did, necessarily, but there's something wonky about the way, oh, I know what it is. It's the stands. The camera doesn't like the stands being that close to the T, I think. Like, when you hit the zoom out button, it kind of freaks out. Not a huge issue. I was just kind of curious why the camera was glitching. I like the river idea. I don't know. I think you might have gone like a little overboard with the rock edging. It's not. It's certainly not bad. It's solid, though. I just think it's a little. It just looks a little odd to my eye that the fairway sits this low and this close to the water level, and then the rock shore sits that high above the water level. Like, I would definitely have raised the fairway up a bit so you have a little bit of a steeper slope into the water, and then kind of sprinkle it maybe with some of the smaller rocks. You can still multi-plan it like you did, but I'd probably use some of the smaller ones and mix it up a little bit. That might look just a little bit more natural. But otherwise, I really like the look of this hole. Like, fairway looks good. Like, a decent strategically placed bunker. Sculpting looks good. It's framed solidly off the tee. Yeah, like this is absolutely a very solid opening hole. Based just on the length, this might be a... Yeah, so it's up 33 feet, and it's a longish shot in. To me, this feels like a really great closing hole, more so than a great opening hole. It's a good hole. It's just, like this to me feels like a really classic long par 4 closing hole. Oh, I forgot to check the designer. Is this you that did this one? Yes, it is. Well, welcome, Ryan. This again, the other theme for all of these streams is complete unpreparedness. So my apologies. All right, crazy fast greens. Got it. This is what I get for not looking at the green speed as I'm putting. That's hard to say. All right. So very like, and this is a very minor nitpick, but so far with the planting, I've noticed it's just in very solid blobs. So it's like you have these areas here which are very very heavily planted, and then the rest of the space is kind of open and empty. Um, the planting here certainly isn't bad by any means. It's you know pretty solid. I just think you would get a lot more natural of a feel if um, like it wasn't so concentrated in some areas. Like I mean, it kind of looks like just from a quick like just drive by perspective of that, like you focused really heavily like I'm going to plant all around this hole, and so you had like this area, like I have this planting area and this planting area, and then the rest of it was just left as like auto gen. So it feels just a little imbalanced planting wise. um Whole concept is good. I think this green is pretty small for the length of this hole, especially with the green speeds that you've got going. Um, it's like to me, I think this makes a great like 160, 170 yard hole as far as in terms of the size of it. I've never used fast greens before, but I like them except for one pin I saw. It's just a little too close to yellow. Yeah, I mean, it's always great to experiment and push yourself and get outside your comfort zone. Yeah, the one thing is I've definitely found that like 187 greens are really tricky to work with. It's definitely tricky to like. I always just like there's no right or wrong answer when it comes to green speed, except maybe if you like set your green speed to 110 or whatever the minimum is. Um, yeah, but it's definitely yeah, 187 I've always found to be tough to design on because it's so lightning quick that it limits a lot of what you can do with your contours. But so far, I haven't seen any issues. Yeah, it just kind of the same general planting note of you have here's my planted area, and then everything else is kind of empty. So like you have all this area off to the left and the right of the tee box that isn't that doesn't have anything to kind of frame the hole, and just this big blob of planting over the corner. Like the planting itself is well done. It might be like the grass might be a little thick. Like I don't think you need to do it like that thick over that big of an area, but again, it's certainly not bad by any means. I like the whole concept. I think this bunker looks a little lonely out here. It's not, especially since you're being blocked out by trees and you can't see it from the. I guess you can see it from the tee, but I think it doesn't really feel like it incorporates itself in the hole a whole lot. It's kind of there, like almost like it was tacked on as an afterthought. Oh, let's go explore this planting. This should be interesting. I don't have any real complaints about like your bunkering has been really solid so far. However, I think you could you could probably uh, like these frame the green nicely, but I think you could probably lower them even more and make this whole green complex pop, make the bunkers a little more intimidating. Because as they sit now, they're a little shallow, so they're not like once you're in it, it's trivial getting out, and they don't have that same intimidation factor. Because so far this course feels very very much like a traditional like championship course where it's there as a test, and then the bunkers feel um, like a standard, like almost like a municipal style bunker where it's like, okay, well we have this little slight ditch and we're gonna fill it with sand, and that will be the hazard, which is totally fine. It's just I think you could make your bunkers a little scarier for this kind of course. This one's a solid concept. Um, yeah, again, this bunker seems. I think it has the same problem as the fairway one on the other one, in that like, it just kind of feels there. It doesn't feel like it serves a purpose. I mean, obviously it serves a purpose of don't hit it there, but it's a very small bunker on what is otherwise a rather open hole that doesn't present a ton of danger. Even for the front pins, you're hitting a wedge at this, so there's not, like there's not a lot of danger of putting it in the water, and not a lot of danger of missing it, too far, kind of anywhere really. So it's like that bunker doesn't feel like it has a strategic purpose. And the ponds there is kind of like a visual thing, but I don't think that serves a ton of a strategic purpose either. This is just kind of a grab a wedge and go directly at the pin, regardless of where that pin is on the green. Let's see. But again, you know, I'm giving you a lot of like I guess negative feedback so far, but I really like this is a really solid course so far. All the stuff I'm pointing out is really nitpicky because like all the basics are here. It's just missing missing a couple things that take it to that next level. I think a little bit is like this one's a little light on. Oh, that's some terrible putting. All right. It's a little light on kind of environment building. Like the plot feels very empty. Um, like the holes aren't that far apart, but I don't feel like they interact with each other at all. Like I can see a little bit of that last hole, and I can see a little bit of what I assume is the next hole coming up. But this is the closest the holes are together I've seen so far, and it still feels very like there's just a lot of empty open space. It doesn't, um, it kind of feels a little bit. Again, I'm trying to think of how I would phrase it. It feels like what's it? Like it's like okay, here's my plot, and I built my holes, and then I'm done. There's like you could definitely do like a little bit of environmental building on this course and make it kind of come alive, like stuff off the course, um, kind of backdrops, I guess, so that sorry, I got something in my throat, so that your sight lines don't just go on forever and ever and ever into kind of the open empty plot. Or you could build your holes closer together so you can kind of they interact with each other a little more, and you can kind of see them from elsewhere on the plot, that sort of thing. But overall, like the sculpting has been solid. Um, yeah, like this green's probably a bit small for this hole. It's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I just, um, and yeah, that might be one of your kind of pseudo. It's not an illegal pin outright, I don't think, but it's pretty darn close. So that might be, like a tricky pin. Stay. It's absolutely a 100% solid hole start to finish, but um, like it doesn't. It's one of those. It doesn't feel like it fits its stage. Like you kind of have this like, okay, well I have this little circle green with a little tier in it for this like big dramatic par five. Like it almost feels what's the word? Kind of anticlimactic, I guess. Is Oh wow, my putting is terrible. Sorry. Obviously, my horrendous play does not affect how I my judgment of the course at all. 187 greens take concentration for me, and it's hard to do all of these things and putt at the same time. I think this one's fine. Like we'll see. Just I feel like with it being this precarious and this narrow, the fact that it slants left to right might be a little too penal for this tee shot. I'd have to like that's one of those things where it's probably fine, and I'd probably play it a couple times and go, oh yeah, never mind. Like that tee shot's trivial enough that it's not an issue. But just at first sight, I look at that and go, oh, that looks just like really really hard to stick. Yeah, and probably a little bit of a smaller green on this one as well. Like especially with like a course. Oh, that's a tough shot. Like a really dramatic championship course like this. Like I feel like the green complexes lack a little bit of like gravitas, I guess, in that they're not like what do you want to call it? Like they're not commanding and intimidating, that sort of thing. Let's see. They're certainly very functional. They're completely fine. I just think that um, they don't fit the theme as much of like this big like frightening long challenging course. Oh, this might be tricky. Let's see. Like I'll give a designer a shout out here. Um, like because this to me feels like a Dylan Bronson course. Like he loves this kind of like standard or like traditional country club type championship course. It feels like it's going to host like a U.S. Open or a PGA or that sort of thing. Um, and he does usually a pretty good job of that kind of stuff. So it's like you can look at some of his green complexes, and they're always very kind of dramatic and commanding. Like I think you could like they're all very flat, and they're just kind of like I've like almost build the green pad up on a lot of these holes. It lets you get like gives this big dramatic slope that you can build bunkers into, lots of runoffs, like slopes, things that repel golf balls, and then you can, and then it makes it so that you can expand your green size and have a lot more on green interest without like, making your hole trivially easy. Because I think when your greens are very flat and and that sort of thing, like you kind of have to make them small in order to have the same level of challenge. Oh, sit. All right. But yeah, again, like all my comments have been really minor. Like, this has been a clean, solid course throughout. And honestly, you're saying how you might adjust your greens before adjust your greens before you submit it to the database. Like, I would honestly like make them crazier and just slow the speeds down a little bit. Like add some contours and stuff. Maybe expand the footprint of some of them. Oh, stop. Let's see. Yeah, that's kind of a tricky spot. But this one is definitely. I think the take so far for this one is that everything here is competently done. Like there's nothing wrong with this course, but it doesn't grab me. In like um, it's very, I guess, standard. I think. Like I'd love to see you like come up with some like aggressive ideas and like like throw some like some holes that make the player think, because it's a lot of execution. uh it's a test of execution. You have to hit shots, but you kind of play the course on autopilot. Like they're all relatively straight, long, and a little bit narrow, so that it's like, okay, don't hit it here, but there's no. I don't have to think about what club I'm hitting. It's always like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go hit driver to wherever the driver spot is. Yeah, that's another iffy green. Yeah, and same thing with the other kind of green waterside hole. I just raised that a couple feet above the water. Um, like if there'd still be a slope to the side, so essentially anything not on the green would still bounce into the water. It just looks a little more natural to me. But that's not like this course thing. I see that mistake, a ton of places. I don't know. It probably falls almost into personal preference, in that I've never thought that the kind of green flush with water look ever really made sense to me. Oh, hang in there. Ugh. Is it gonna let me drop in the water? That's different. I think we have an Eric hole going on here. I just cannot get this one going. All right, we're over. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the greens or the green speed, but I almost feel like it almost hinders this course more than it helps it, because it just feels like it very much limits what you can do with the greens. And on a course that plays pretty standard, you definitely want to have some interest in the greens to kind of spice things up. Like what do you want to call it? Joe Golfer G and his Mick Raynor style stuff is a great um, uh, kind of example in how you can take something that's very clean, like almost sterile and very straightforward, and make it like really interesting to play and to look at. Obviously you don't need to go for that style per se, but like I feel like it's almost um, like required playing for folks who like to make that country club style course. Just because it's like here's how you can inject all sorts of drama and interest into this type of course. Like I think Eric Nesbitt, he's another great guy to look at for those type of courses because that's he loves to do that. He makes them very clean and very demanding, but they're always interesting. And they're never automatic. They always make you think. And to me, I think that's the biggest thing that this course is lacking is that it's missing a little bit of soul, I guess, and that it's here we go. Here's a little bit of environmental stuff, a little bit of a waterfall thing here. Again, it feels a little out of place since it just kind of magically starts here and then magically ends there. Like again, it doesn't feel like it fits in any kind of greater environment. It's just here's the centerpiece for this hole. I see like the buildings back there, and you have like a little bit of a city. I might expand on that, make it visible from more spots. Makes your plot kind of feel lived in, I suppose. Well, this course has certainly succeeded in being a test. There's a couple borderline pins, but outside of that, there's been nothing in this course that I would consider unfair. It's stern but fair all the way through. I assume that's kind of what you're going at, and if so, you've definitely pulled that off. Yeah, and this, same kind of thing with this planting as you did earlier, where it that's a lot of a lot of grass, and it just it doesn't feel like it. It's very there and in your face. It's just kind of okay. Here's the long grass part. Yeah, and to me, I think the biggest, one of the biggest things to watch out for with this type of course is if you have kind of like narrow, hard to hit fairway all the way down, that tends to start stripping out the strategy from the hole. Because if your fairway is 20 yards wide all the way down the fairway, or all the way down the entire hole, well then now there's absolutely no reason that you would have to think about your club choice. You just go hit driver and call it a day. It's just like, okay, well, can I hit the shot or not? I'm either in the fairway or I'm not. And there's no like, okay, well, like I hit a good shot, but I made a bad choice, and now I'm paying the consequences. It's just kind of the, okay, did I hit the shot it asked me to or not? Hey, Jive Turkey, how's it going? Let's see. Yeah, I'm thinking, like, there's a lot of macro elevation, and then it kind of runs up a mountain and that sort of thing. But all of the, I think you could use a little bit more contouring to this one. Like, some micro sculpting where there's like mounds and ridges and hills and things to play over. Because it's all very clean, but it's all very kind of flat. Ooh, uh, that's an interesting concept. I think this hole's way too small for the length. Like for something that's 220 yards and on speeds this high, um, like you definitely need a lot of run up area. Like this is definitely a play the ground game type course where you can have some interesting contours that feed to the hole, that sort of thing. That's kind of how I would want to design this hole, and it's all carry, and I don't think there's any way you can hold this green. Also, I like you know, I like how we threw some houses and stuff in there. Uh, I kind of wish that we saw some more of that before 17. Like you could kind of sprinkle this around the course, just to again give it that lived-in feel, like this course exists somewhere. Like when you get to the 17th hole, there's you usually don't want to be introducing a whole lot of new stuff to the player. We'll get in there. Yeah, I like I like the thinking outside the box bit here with the kind of a green that incorporates this big kind of natural hazard thing. It's definitely an interesting idea, but I think the execution was kind of a miss for me. And that's just you end up with this really tiny, oddly shaped green for a really long par three, and it does those two kind of things don't quite mesh for me. Yeah, see, I would love to see a little bit more of this kind of environmental stuff sprinkled around the course, like a nice little bridge and a little clubhouse here, that sort of thing. Like that looks nice. Yeah, I don't feel like there really needs to be the split fairway thing here. It feels a little bit arbitrary. Um, like I think just winding your fairway around this river is enough of a challenge. Like you're asking the player to decide how much of this hole they want to take on. So I don't think that split fairway bit is necessary. But otherwise, I like this concept. It's solid. Let's try. Let's see if I can't hook one in here. Oh, albatross. All right. Well, that was a shot. This is a good closing hole, though. Yeah. Overall, very solid course. There's very little wrong with this one. I'd love to see a little bit of kind of spice to it. But yeah, anyway, a very solid entry. Thanks for making this for us. We appreciate it. Thanks for being a part of the contest. Yeah, I thought that was solid. I enjoyed my round, even though it kicked my ass. But yeah. Anyway, I'll probably cut the stream here, and I'll be back in just a moment for folks who are watching live for with the next one. So I will see you all in a minute.